Hi there, welcome to Bible/Chat. Our technology is not the highest end.
Nope.
We are filming this on my laptop. We don't have microphones.
See what just happened?
See that?
Yep.
And for that reason, sometimes the video gets a little shaky. We were talking about maybe putting a glass of water here and then just doing this.
Yeah.
Like
You know what
Jurassic
that-
Park.
yeah, there you
Anyway,
go. Yep.
movie reference. There you go.
Very good.
Just give it away.
Good movie.
Anyway, we're talking about some ladies' issues a little bit, like
last
sort
time.
of.
Yeah.
We talked about wives, how they respect their husbands, how they
submission.
submit, and what that looks like.
Mhm.
Obviously, we're not calling for like total silence or doormat
No.
principles, but
No.
but just some of those realities are what the Bible calls us to. So.
Absolutely.
And what we're going to talk about today is sort of a caveat to that.
Yeah.
Maybe a situation that might show itself a little bit differently. Maybe you have a husband and wife who are both believers.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, the wife has just had an extensive, has had a much longer
Yeah.
Christian walk.
Yeah.
Lots more
Yeah.
training. Lots more
Absolutely.
theological awareness.
Yep.
The husband's been a Christian for a relatively short time.
Right.
Not as much training.
Right.
Loves Christ, but just
Yeah.
not as aware, not as
Yeah.
mature, not as wise in
Yeah.
some sense. And so
Yep.
maybe let's counsel. What I'd like to
sides,
do is
right.
counsel kind of both sides of
Right.
that. Speak to the wife,
Yeah.
speak to the husband, and then maybe reverse those roles and talk that a little bit as well. So
yeah, it's easier when it's reversed.
Yeah.
Husband. Yeah, I think we've faced a lot of that, right? Where the wife went to a better church for a longer period of time, just more biblically trained,
Yeah.
equipped,
yeah,
all that, right?
yeah, just aware and
Yeah, has a greater spiritual awareness and sense of just everything. So what should a wife do in that situation? Because it's easy to get impatient with your husband,
yeah,
frustrated, feel like he can't shepherd you or lead you.
yeah,
Like he's just, if you've been, especially if you've been maybe single for longer and you've been trained well and taught well, it's like doubly so.
totally.
And women can struggle with that. And then the submission part really gets, hard there.
It's very
right?
complex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So ultimately, the answer is simple in one sense.
Yeah.
The heart is hard.
yeah,
The answer is you have to humble yourself
Yeah.
and respect your husband.
Mm.
Really, the word is fear, actually.
Yeah.
That's in Ephesians, right? In Ephesians 5:31-ish. 33, yeah, somewhere in there.
Anyway, seminary was great for you. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all by hand. I forgot everything. No. So that's the exhortation. That's the call on her heart. And she knows it. A godly woman, biblically trained woman will know that. The difficulty, of course, is in practice your husband is not getting the answers right.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't know how to do devotions. Doesn't, even like simple as that, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't know how to like lead you, lead the kids,
Yeah.
maybe family worship. I mean, all sorts of things can come into play.
Yeah.
And you're just more knowledgeable, more aware, all of that. So I would say that's number one. The biggest issue really is humility
Yeah.
there, right? Just trusting that God, the way that He's designed things and called things to be, is not only is it right, but because it's right and it's from Him, it's good and it's kind and it's going to produce good fruit. It's the most loving thing He could do.
Yeah.
Is to put you in exactly that situation. So you got to humble yourself. But then you have to believe that God does love you, and that He has sovereignly placed you in His wisdom in that perfect situation, with not unequally yoked, but a husband who is not as well trained and aware spiritually of things and theologically.
Totally.
So instead of fighting it back,
Yeah.
or trying to lead,
Yeah.
and trying to wrest sort of like the reins from Him, which will then further complicate everything and make things worse.
Yeah.
You say, Lord, this is your will for me, and you love me. I know it. You're sovereign and wise and good, so I'm going to humble myself and really place myself under my husband. That's a general way of saying. I mean, there's a lot of practical applications, and
Yeah. We could do hours of that.
even hours of that. And I would say, to the degree then that's happening in the wife's heart, she needs to continue to affirm. I would say one very practical thing would be to affirm the small successes, the small
sense of grace,
the evidences of grace in his life, and just encourage him and affirm him. But really, what she cannot do, what she must not do, is in any way. And I know this is hard, but in any way, lead.
Yeah.
In any way, lead. She. All that theology and training, actually, God gave that to her for the purpose of godliness, right? Not for the purpose of training her husband.
Yeah.
It's actually for the purpose of growth and grace.
Yeah.
And through that, it actually encourages the husband as he sees his wife. I know she knows more than me. I know she's more mature than me. but she's actually like not asserting that over me.
Yeah, totally.
And that will actually help him grow in his
yeah,
godhood.
yeah, totally.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you said humility, I think 3 times there. So the opposite of that obviously is pride.
Pride.
So to try to like say, well, since I know better, I'll take the reins.
Right.
Since I'm more mature,
Yeah.
I'll manage this. I'll deal with it. Those are just acts of pride.
It really is.
And how do you? Ultimately, is that just like a rebellion against God? I mean, what's the?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is. I mean, it's this sense that that you haven't received it.
Yeah.
That you've earned it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you haven't actually. Salvation is given.
Yeah.
Knowledge is given.
Yeah.
Growth is given. It's all actually dependent on Christ.
Yeah.
So to the degree that I realize my life is just governed by grace,
Yeah.
my training, my awareness, all of that is just God's grace. I deserve nothing. That gospel reality, that'll humble us.
Yeah,
That'll change
totally.
the wife who's struggling with pride in that area.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, it's super helpful.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we just call her to obey those verses.
We do.
And just say,
Yeah.
hey, though difficult,
Of course.
your humble submission to the Word of God and your humble submission to your husband will ultimately help him grow.
Yep.
And serve him far more than you trying to take the reins yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
That'll lead to disaster.
Yeah.
It never, because you're going against like divine design.
Yeah.
And anytime you go against divine design, it just falls apart.
Yeah, things are going to crack.
Yeah,
So what would you say to the husband in that situation?
Wait, am I saying it or are you saying
No,
it?
you can say it.
Okay. The husband, I would say, humble yourself. Don't
Come
take
on,
the
buddy.
reins from the one. No. Don't become the chef in that. No.
That's right.
Well, we would say the same thing, but obviously in that case where you're saying where the husband is less trained?
Yeah, let's say, in that
he's
situation
struggling with
where
that.
his wife
No.
is very mature,
Yeah.
theologically,
Yeah.
very biblical.
I would say to the husband, that is hard. I would say for him, it is faith in the fact that God has placed you sovereignly, lovingly, wisely in this role, though she is, whatever, leap years ahead of you.
Yeah.
God knows what's best.
Yeah.
And lack of maturity, lack of training does not disqualify you from being a husband and a leader.
Yeah.
Right? That is only just then, at that point, probably like something like fear of man.
Yeah, totally.
Like you're afraid of your wife's approval and judgment and, whether even she gives it or not. It's just built in. And so there, you got to repent of that.
Yeah.
And to realize, Lord, like, I have a call on my life for my kids, for my wife. That is not optional.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he gives every resource for the husband to do it.
Again,
just like with the wife, like how can she submit and humble herself? It's so hard. Yeah. Well, if you're doing it in your own flesh, yes.
Yeah, you're not
but
going to do it.
Just to realize, like, everything I have has been given by God. Everything I'm called to do, it's really enabled by God.
Yeah,
so the husband can do it.
Yeah.
So it's like he needs more of that prodding and maybe more like forceful, loving exhortation. Hey, go do it.
Yeah.
Whereas with the wife, it would be like, humble yourself, submit, place yourself under. It's not so much like doing something, but more restraining. If she's like kind of trying to do.
Yeah.
For him, I'd be like, no, you got to go out and get him.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, fulfill your role.
Fulfill your role.
Yeah, be careful not to abdicate that simply because of your lack of awareness or lack of maturity in this season.
Like, oh, the pastor will do it. Oh, the character will do it. Oh, she can read that book. That's actually not helpful. No, actually, you're called to sanctify.
Yeah.
As she does in her fulfilling her role.
Totally, yeah.
But in our fulfilling our roles as husbands, we do help grow our wives and point them to Christ. So
totally,
yeah, he cannot, like you said, abdicate it or sort of like, half-heartedly do it and say, well, the church will do most of it and I'll do a little bit.
Yeah.
No, it's actually your responsibility.
Yeah. And then what would you say, like, I mean, obviously the fact that she's so trained is actually a benefit to him in one sense.
Yeah.
So then just like accessing her knowledge, her awareness, but then still leading from a place of humility and saying, hey, I can lead and make these decisions at the end of the day.
Right.
But man, the Lord's blessed me with a very mature wife.
Use her.
Sound, like glean wisdom from her and then make those choices.
Exactly. Just like with a wise friend.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the closest friend, right? So just ask her.
Yeah.
What does she think? Have dialogue about those things. And it rests with you ultimately as the leader of the home. But like good leading is not like just dominate.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what she thinks. I'm just gonna do whatever.
Yeah.
Listen to her. Ask her. Dialogue with her.
Yeah.
Seek her input.
Yeah.
And I mean that will actually increase your leadership as well because she realizes, wow, he's a humble man.
Yeah. And he really is listening to me. And Oh, that's so helpful. Well, very good, man. Thank you. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I know these situations can be very complex, and we just want to help you think through that biblically. Well, thanks so much. We'll see you next time.